August 22nd at 4 p.m. Dan English is with me. Woody McEvers is on vacation still, or he's working, or he's not available. But I will handle the helm. And coming up first is a purchasing policy with Randy Adams, our Deputy City Attorney. Are you the deputy? Is that your title?
Yes.
It is now.
It's close enough.
Very good. Thank you.
Good afternoon. What we're bringing before Public Works today is a new purchasing policy, both for personal goods and services, as well as a Public Works construction procurement policy. Those policies have been in work for some time now, have been passed back and forth among the various departments, and the reason for this is that there is a statutory scheme for these type of contracts, and there has been a little bit of confusion in the city departments about how various contracts are to be procured, and this is an attempt to set out in a very clear and simple way a policy that the departments can follow for the purchase of goods, services, and public works contracts. The policy also gets the finance department and the legal department involved at various steps and lets the departments know when that should occur. And so the legal department would recommend adopting these new policies for the benefit of the city.
Very good.
Stand for questions.
Dan?
Well, I don't know if I have any questions, but I do appreciate having it laid out that way. And I think a lot of people tend to think of, well, if you got to go out to bid, it's either, it's big enough you got to go out to bid or not go to bid. But I like that this has, 4 or 5 layers from, 0 to 1,000, 1,000 to 25,000 or something. There are different kind of benchmarks for the different pricing, and then different requirements that come at each step, and then some ability to respond to emergencies. But like you say, too, it ties in the finance department so that we know, it's been budgeted and there is money. So anyway, on the whole, I think it looks like a good plan. So.
Thank you. And I agree, too. I think it's good that we finally have this, because I remember there were several times I was stopped by fellow council people who would say, do we have to vote on this? Or is this, can they go out to bid without getting other bids? And this clarifies all that. That was the purpose. I do have some specific questions for you. On the draft policy, it talks about the goal, and it says for procuring personal property. Is there anything heavy about that adjective personal there?
No, it's just a standard legalese, I suppose, for property such as vehicles, computers, those type of things.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that as well, and I kind of think in the county terms of real property or personal property, and I guess personal property are more things or...
Correct. Things that everything that's not real property, and there are separate procedures for real property that are laid out in other statutes.
Real property is land.
Land.
Buildings and things.
Correct.
Okay. Real property. Immobiliare. Under the policy, under procurements, and also several places, it says quotes from multiple vendor. Let me start over again. Quotes from multiple vendors should be solicited unless unique circumstances. Who determines what a unique circumstance is?
Well, I think under this, the policy as it's set out is if a department believes that there are unique circumstances, that they should consult with the finance department and or the legal department to determine if that falls within the statutory exception.
Okay. Another legal question for you on the same sentence, actually. So it says quotes from multiple vendors should be solicited. What's the legal definition of should?
It should be unless the exception applies. It's a mandatory.
Okay.
Unless the exception applies.
So that's mandatory. It means they have to do it. And also, what was the decision? So there's 3 staff level positions that I would consider to be authorities here. So you have the finance director, you have the legal department, you also have the city administrator. But the language in here refers to the finance director. So why was it chosen to be the finance director instead of the other two?
In various places, it talks about the finance director making an initial determination if something is either outside the current budget. I think for example, in number 2, procurements between 1,000 and 25,000, it says quotes from multiple vendors should be solicited unless unique circumstances such as an emergency make soliciting multiple quotes unreasonable. The next sentence says, in such cases, the department head should consult with the city finance director. And the idea there is most of the exceptional circumstances have to do with emergency, and they're going to have to do with funding. You know, how is this funding going to be achieved? Mm-hmm. And so that was the decision, I think, through the staff review of these documents, that would be the appropriate official at that stage.
And then as the dollar values increase, it seems like the language becomes more alarming, and eventually, at some point, city council's involved. And especially, for example, and I forget which one it is because I didn't highlight that specific one, or maybe I did, especially when the item exceeds their budget. But still, I have an issue, just talking here, I have an issue so that, you know, in some cases, they may be taking part of their budget that was approved by council and redirecting it into another thing. And in this new policy, does that need to be given to council for approval or a heads up or something?
Well, I think it depends on the level of the finance involved. The general language used is if the contemplated procurement has been approved, and that would be some specific item that's been specifically approved. In terms of a situation where there may be money, but it wasn't a specifically approved item, I believe it does go to City Council.
So on the detailed, on the draft, and there are no page numbers, it says in Section D, procurements between $25,000 and $100,000. City Council approval for projects within the current financial plan is not necessary to complete the procurement, but the City Council should, again that word, be notified that the procurement has been completed using a heads-up process. My comment on that is that that's kind of a weak way to do it. I would prefer, and I'm just talking here because I know this is a draft, but I'd prefer something a little bit more formal, since sometimes heads-up don't really include a lot of detailed stuff like this, and it might not be taken as seriously by council people if it came that way. So that was just my thought on that. And also, with regards to that City Council should be notified, where's the enforcement in case they're not?
Well, the enforcement, I suppose, would be with the City Council when they became aware of it. There is no enforcement process in the statutes themselves.
But we can make policy that way.
But the city can make policy and the council can make policy. And, you know, in that situation, if a procurement has been approved by a department head or by a department without city council approval, and the city council disagrees with that, then, you know, the city council does have a right to step in.
That's why in one of my notes here for one of these procurements above $50,000, how much would it be to just modify the policy that is presented, the draft policy, to say that all of those have to go to council? What kind of roadblocks would that put up for you? I mean, if you had to take everything to council?
Well, for procurements above $50,000,
yeah.
For personal property or services, it does say that specific city council approval of the bid award and contract is required.
Okay. That's
good. And the mayor must sign the agreement on behalf of the city.
So city council approval must be obtained. Okay. Good.
And in all the other cases, the city council has to approve an invoice that comes in as well.
Yeah, and that process isn't really transparent. So, okay, yeah, it does, the invoice will be submitted to city council for approval, but that just, I mean, and I know people aren't aware of this, but during the council meeting, you have 2 council people, 3 actually, who signed invoices, because there is that, that statute that says that, what is it, it's not invoices, it's orders against the city or something like that, or claims against the city, I think is the language that they use, which is weird. So, and we went back and forth about that a few times. I don't know. Anything else, Dan, you want to add?
No, I think you hit pretty good.
Yeah, well, this is something
Get
that
it
I've-
to the council, yeah.
because before you joined us, I had actually sat down and asked Renata a couple of times, it's like, what, is this to go to us? Does this go out to bid? And this really clarifies, I think, a lot of that language, which is awesome, because it'll keep us on the same page, and also let staff know if we have a question about something, that here it is in the policy. So I think it's a really good thing. Joe, we're looking for a motion.
So I would make, let's see, get back to, and I will say, part of the danger of having on my computers, I see I'm down to 4%
On
in
battery.
the shields, yeah. So I would make a motion to approve the council adopting a new purchasing policy, a new public works, or is it construction policy, or is that the second?
Procurement, yeah. Public
Procurement
Works,
policy.
construction.
Yep.
Procurement policy.
Oh, thanks.
Amy to the rescue. Okay, and I will second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, Amy, can we make that a discussion item? Thank you. And next up, we have,
Went off the air.
in there goes his laptop, and here comes
That I have
Mr.
that.
Becker, who is going to be talking to us about an agreement with Welch Comer Engineers for professional engineering services. Mr. Becker.
Good afternoon, Public Works Commission. Before you, staff is requesting that we secure an agreement with Welch Comer Engineers for professional engineering and surveying services on an ongoing basis, as well as for when we have a conflict of interest with JUB. Last week, as you recall, we presented this very same agreement to council for the services of JUB. This contract essentially covers areas there's a conflict of interest and other areas that are smaller projects that we can delegate out to Welch Comer Engineering. Utilizing the same criteria that was selected for JUB, Welch Comer was selected based on their responsiveness as well as their willingness to work with the city. They have excellent qualifications as well as a competence and expertise in the field of engineering and surveying. Again, this will stay under the same budget criteria that was presented for JUB. And we believe that Welch Comer will make an excellent contribution to the city. We requested that Welch Comer also provide us with their rates as well as their proof of insurances. All this information is provided to you in your packet. And once again, we will be utilizing some services from the State of Idaho Division of Environmental Quality. So with that, I will entertain any questions.
Very good. Dan? Who's, by the way, he's playing catch-up now because he's now on paper.
Oh.
I'm sure all your
No,
notes
I
are
was,
gone.
and getting, and just one little thing, kind of probably a typo near the end in section 25, section B, talking about errors and omissions insurance, and down near the bottom it says, in the amount of at least $2 million, and then in parentheses, $1 million. I'm not sure which one is the correct, but
That's how we save money in the budget.
Excellent question. Yes, this
somebody can
conversation,
clarify before it goes to the, yeah.
this conversation was brought up to the city clerk, and it actually should state 1 million, I believe.
Okay.
So we will get that corrected.
Good eye.
And then otherwise, I appreciate the fact that we are in a, in-between basis for not having our full-time city engineer, so these things are, necessary to keep things going and just, actually, I mean, as you're aware, in my day job working for a housing nonprofit, and we've had to ask different questions about, well, what about, how does this work for city services for this or that? So I can appreciate that the general public and construction industry and things should not suffer because we have a interim staffing issue. So anyway, I think we need to do whatever we need to do to make it work for them. So
Thank you.
but the
Bless you.
contract otherwise, as far as I see, looks okay. So
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Mike, so in last week's episode, $25,000 for JUB, $25,000 for Welsh Comer, right? Where's that coming from in our ever deepening budget?
It's actually, they're going to be sharing that budget is a time and materials contract based on staff's request for work. So they don't automatically get entitled that $25,000 right off the bat. So we're delegating the workload. Staff is stepping up to provide the same level of service the best that we can. There are just some areas where staff is unable to perform their duties as stipulated in the state statutes for professional engineers and surveyors.
So the 25 is the same?
25,000 is
Same
the
bucket of
same
cash.
budget.
Okay, so we're not increasing it by 20, that's good.
and it's not to exceed 25
Correct.
Right, which it might.
for
And
this
so-
one. Okay.
So, and why wasn't this brought up last week?
Time constraints.
Okay,
Critical path items were being discussed with both consulting firms. Very good question, though. This is, both engineering firms have existing contracts with the city, and so we were focusing most of our efforts on our critical path items to get certain items from being delayed or deferred. And the main goal was to get somebody on board right away. And while we were discussing this last week, we were already in the works of getting this contract, knowing that we would have to have a second consulting firm to cover in case there's a conflict of interest.
okay. Is this something that, I know Gordon was in the process of doing some negotiations with ITD and the hospital for the Ironwood intersection. Is this something that these engineers would do? How's that going to be handled?
Yes, these engineers are, both consulting firms have existing projects, roadway projects that Gordon was working with them on, and both firms have willingly stepped up to help cover the city on these projects so we don't end up delaying the project or losing funding. And so some of these right-of-way acquisitions and stuff, these firms have already started picking up the ball and running with. So this actually does not cover any of those costs. These are for the other things that the city engineer is responsible for. These existing contracts that we have with these two firms will help cover those costs. We'll just have to figure it out as we go. Again, with staff stepping up where we can, we're trying to keep things moving at the same level of service, but obviously we have to expedite certain things right away, and that's where we need that additional assistance.
Okay.
So kind of a related question. So as I understand, we have the two firms, and in part of this is kind of like a conflict attorney, that if one is already working with us on something, then we use the other one? Is that, and also, do we ever have a situation where they both might have a piece of a project?
Well, we're hoping that we won't have that issue present itself
Okay.
until we end up securing a replacement.
Okay.
But at this stage in the game, I'll give you an example. JEB Engineers also represents Dalton Water Association, which is part of the Government Way project. Well, Welch Comer can cover for some of those things, but their existing contract might not cover some other things unrelated to the Government Way project that we're having with Dalton Gardens Water Association right now. So this will help. It's basically covering, we have double coverage, and what we're trying to do is make sure that we're not left with nobody holding the ball. And this will, you know, staff will police this and keep track of that. So did that answer your question?
Yeah,
Council?
yeah.
Okay.
And again, bottom line, I mean, it's something we need to do, it looks like, so.
Who's going to be policing it, Mr. Becker?
Both Tim Martin, myself, and our Deputy City Administrator, Sam Taylor. So we're all discussing these things as we go. This is kind of one of those evolving things, because this is unfamiliar territory that the city's been in. Or if it has, none of the active players are familiar with this play. So we are working collectively as a group on these things, because I don't believe one person can just take the ball and run right now. It's going to be a joint effort, a team effort, in order to make these things successful.
Very good. Some housekeeping thing. I assume you mentioned that this was the same contract. I notice it has a resolution number and a date on it, so those are probably just the same dates. They need to be updated.
Yes,
Agreement made on the 18th day of August. That was probably
yes, those will be
that
updated.
and the resolution number.
I'm sure our city clerk, she's right on it. She would
Doing
get
it right
that
now.
covered.
Yeah, very good. Okay. So, Jen, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I would make a motion that we recommend to council the agreement with Welch Comer Engineers for professional engineering services.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. And I would think we could go on consent, but I guess I can just say things during the consent calendar vote. If anyone has any questions then, I think we'll be good. Thank you, Amy. So there being no more business before the committee, motion to adjourn?
You bet.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all.